Ah, this Barbie bed is just not pretty at all. So I decided to make my dream Barbie bed using foam board, paper, clay, and dowels. I'll be taking you through the whole build from start to finish. Let's get started. Before building, here's my design sketch with all the measurements. I planned the dimensions carefully so the bed feels elegant and fits my dolls. I started by cutting the foam board pieces for the bed frame. These are the side frame pieces and this one is the bed head. Next, I made the bed head ornaments using clay and finally got to use my oven for the first time. Here are the baked parts. Now I'm preparing the layered cardstock for the curved top of the bed head. I cut 7 identical pieces for each part and stacked them using regular wood glue to build up thickness. Then I brushed thin coats of gesso on all the parts to create a subtle wood-like texture. You'll notice the foam board bends after applying gesso on one side. I'll fix this after painting. Let's make the legs. Cutting square dowels with a hand saw and meter box? Yeah, not my favorite part. These will be the lower legs. I chamfered the top edges to make them look nicer, then prepped some thin dowels for extra stability and a little decorative detail at the base. At first, I just glued the legs, but the joint wasn't strong enough, so I changed the method. Drilled a hole in the lower leg, added wood glue, and fitted the pieces together. Much sturdier. I made the same mistake with the canopy bars, so here's how I fixed it. First, I cut off the flared end of a brass insert to make a simple metal sleeve. Then I tapered the ends of the dowel since they were too thick to fit. Finally, I added a dab of glue and slid the dowels into the sleeve. Next, the base. I cut a foam board piece and glued 1-inch blocks underneath. These blocks carry most of the weight since the dowel legs only attach from the side with glue. Not very strong. Supporting from the bottom is much sturdier. After that, I made a separate layer of wooden slats. These help spread the weight evenly and prevent sagging so the doll can sit on the edges without any problem. Finally, I added a foam board slat just for looks. Let's start painting. I'll use the bed head piece as an example. To build a solid base, I apply several very thin coats on each part. The first coat looks patchy, and if your paint feels too thick, just add a little water. I brush in one direction to match the gesso texture, keeping the strokes horizontal and unbroken. Each coat needs to dry completely before the next. By the 4th coat, the coverage is even and ready for the wood grain. I repeated the same process on all other pieces. For most parts, I applied 3 coats. I didn't tell you in the beginning, but I made a beige color one as well along with the brown one. Now it's time to create the wood grain. I'm using black acrylic paint, a little water, and burnt umber. I start with very dry touches using no extra water. I dab and smudge the paint with my finger to create natural variation, repeating a few times. Next, I mix in a little water and add a lighter color around the previous touches, blending softly for depth and realism. For clay pieces, I dab thin paint sparingly, then use a finer brush to add details and crevices and edges. Thinning the paint gives a softer, more natural look. After painting, I covered the exposed foam board edges at the top of the bed head. Also, the pieces bent a little, so I fixed it by applying a bit of water to the back and placing some weights on top overnight. Time to apply varnish. This step gives the paint a smooth finish and a nice polished look. Now I'll show you how I apply a coat on the bedhead piece. principle is the same as painting. Several thin layers are better than one thick coat for an even smooth finish. I applied 3 thin coats for most parts, letting each dry fully about 3 hours between coats until the sheen and depth are just right. Looks easy, right? Well, here's the prototype I messed up. Cloudy, bumpy, brush marks everywhere. Now that all the parts are ready, it's time to assemble. For the bed head, I glued 2 cardstock pieces at the curve and added 3 clay ornaments on top. Now I'm attaching the side frames to the base. First, I used tape to hold the pieces in place while the glue set and cured. Then I applied glue along the joints. For the legs, I sanded the varnished areas where the glue would go and attached them using epoxy. It's perfect because it fills small gaps and creates a strong bond. To make assembly easier and keep the bed head replaceable, I first connected it temporarily to the legs so I could attach the legs to the base in the right positions. Then I attached the canopy bars, cutting the dowel ends, adding epoxy, and connecting them to the top of the legs. Finally, I trimmed the bottom of the bed head, bringing its height to 4 inches. Now that the frame is done, let's make a mattress and bedding. First, I glued sponges onto a cardboard base. Then I added a layer of felt on top to smooth out the surface and hide any gaps. To give it more height, I added this rectangular foamboard frame. Finally, I wrapped everything in white fabric and secured it with hot glue. For the pillows, I cut 2 fabric rectangles. One was an inner lining since the outer fabric was too thin. For the ruffles, I first hemmed the fabric strip along one edge, then sewed the thread through the other edge. I pulled the thread to gather the strip until it matched the pillow's length. Then I stitched the ruffle strip onto the pillow fabric, sewed around the edges, flipped it inside out, and stuffed it with polyfill. For the duvet cover, I cut larger rectangles of fabric for the front and back, plus long strips for the ruffles. I made the ruffles the same way as with the pillows. First, I stitched the ruffle strips onto the back pieces, but the layers got pretty thick, so sometimes I had to use a plier to pull the needle through. Honestly, I don't recommend hand sewing this. Once the ruffles were attached to the back, I added a top layer of the cover. This part was much easier, but after some intense stitching and a few broken needles, it was finally done. I flipped the cover right side out, and you can add filling if you like. I didn't use any in the end. Finally, the curtains. I used sheer chiffon fabric. I hemmed the edges, added ribbon at the top so they could hang from the canopy, and created soft gathers like this. Now the crafting is done, let's see the result. Here's the frame all put together. Let's add the sleds and the mattress. Now let's test the canopy connections. Nice and sturdy. And notice how the inner legs stay hidden from the outside. Time to style the bed. I'll start with the minimal setup and later show you the full styling. Let's bring in Barbie and pose her. This project was definitely a challenge, but I'm so happy with how it turned out. Honestly, this is my dream bed. I'd love to have one in my own size. She looks so cute from this angle too. And here's a quick test. This bed can hold 1, 2, 3, 4 dolls sitting at the edge, no problem. And now the full styling with the ruffled duvet. Clean, classic, and elegant. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!